Greetings and salutations, one and all. Welcome to the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew. It's the end of the night shift week. How you doing? Let me tell you, it's been a week and change. A week and a half, a week plus tax, whichever way you want to call it. But we're at the end of the night shift week. And we're closing it off with a bang. I want to say big ups to all those who are locked in right now, those on TuneIn Radio, the night shift to DJ Kevin Stew, and the affiliate stations across the globe, those on PEMGTV.com, big ups to you. Those right here at the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew on kevinstew.com, home of the night shift. Welcome. Those on Facebook Live, welcome. Remember, this is just a segment, so don't get too comfortable. Jump on over to kevinstew.com, where we keep things bubbling in the stew pot. Yeah? I don't even have the stew pot up. My goodness, that is so unlike me. But anyway, in the meantime, in between time, I want to say welcome, and thanks to my segment sponsors. Let me go through them real quickly. Thanks to Pulse Media Group. When being in the moment is priceless, you want to give them a call. 754-999-6020. They do everything you see right here on kevinstew.com. They can host your website. They can help you to create a website, if not create one for you. They can provide streaming services on your website. They can stream your event live. In this time of social distancing and everywhere closed, you have an event that you want to do from, say, in your den. Maybe a section of your bedroom dressed up. Not you dressed up, but the bedroom dressed up. Well, yeah, preferably with you dressed up too. Give them a call, 754-999-6020, or visit them at pulsemg.com. I want to say thanks to Althea and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Althea is a licensed massage therapist that operates out of Broad County, North Miami-Dade, and South Palm Beach counties. She comes to you. Just give her a call, 954-655-9000, or email her at thealater@att.net. When you email her, you can or call her. You can also provide that COVID-19 free test, yeah? Because she's coming to you COVID-19 free, and she'd like to leave that way also. She only asks that you get off her table, make sure that you're COVID free, and you pay her. She brings her oils, she brings her table, and her Healing Heavenly Hands. Thanks to Reggae Global Entertainment. They'll be your booking agents, your tour management agents. Take care of your copyrights, publishings, trademarks, business registrations, music production, and so much more. Not to mention marketing and promotion. And keep your eyes open for Reggae Global Radio coming up. The official start date, September 4. And of course, GMAT Music Solutions. Bringing your event to life, providing sound, light, stage production services, musicians, singers, audio engineers, musical equipment, PA systems, and so much more. Visit them at gmatmusicsolutions.com, where you can also do your online shopping. And also give them a call, 754-307-GMAC. Yeah, feels so good to have taken care of the formalities. And now to get down to the real business. The sound of Leon Caldero, the track is called Act Normal. Whatever normal is. However you classify it. Tonight we have someone who you know, David, are you hearing me? That's weird. I'm hearing you just fine. I wonder what is going on now. So these things, I tell you.
Does it say www there?
You know, David should be hearing me. I don't know why he's not hearing me, but I'm hearing him loud and clear.
Go to the night shift. DJ Kevin Stu. You're grabbing some sound problems too, so I can't hear anything that's going on. Oh, he said later.
Let me try to figure out what's going on with David's audio here. Let me see if I can reconnect with David here. That's funny. Now it's saying that David is unavailable. Wow, I tell you, I just love technology, boy. Hey, David, are you hearing me now? No? No? Okay. Wow.
He thinks it's pretty funny.
No, this is crazy.
I did. It doesn't make any difference.
Wow.
He hears me fine.
Yes, I do. Let me get David on the phone.
He hits audio and visual. I just unplugged it. Yeah, it's all the way in.
Turn it all the way down.
Yeah, it's all the way down. You're doing the phone. Hey there. This is kind of weird.
Okay. All right. This is hilarious. Are you okay? All right, David. Are you hearing me? You with me, David? Even the phone is acting kind of wonky now. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. David, you with me back?
I'm trying to Skype you back. Oh wow, man. This is insane.
Isn't it? Okay.
Right.
So you're hearing me now, right?
I hear you, yes.
So are you hearing me on the phone or are you hearing me on Skype?
I'm not hearing you on Skype.
Okay.
I'm not even seeing you on Skype.
Oh, he's there.
Oh, that's so weird. Oh my goodness. This is hilarious. Okay.
So I'm ringing you right now.
Okay. You're ringing me. I'm hearing you. Okay, so all right, we're going to get really creative tonight. So,
Yeah.
we're gonna look at you on Skype and talk to you over the phone.
Yeah, that's fine. I wish I could see you though.
That should happen right now, actually.
That's not no. I see a little icon that indicates on.
You see my icon?
Yeah, up in the corner.
But you're not seeing me?
Nope. So, look, Sabrina's bringing her laptop. Maybe we'll have success with it. So we can hang on for 5 minutes. We'll give it another shot here.
I'm loving this because, you know, it's for everybody listening in right now. We did this, we did a run through and everything earlier on.
Perfect.
And everything was perfect.
Do you remember what I said? Remember what I said? The technology's great when it works.
Technology is great just when it works. You're very right. This
So
is
your
crazy.
Skype handle is Kevin Stew, right?
Kevin.stew. Yes.
Okay. Sabrina's trying to type you right now.
Because I get your audio. I was hearing you fine and everything.
Yeah.
This is too weird. It's hilarious.
Okay, I think she sounds.
For those of you tuning in on Facebook Live, hello. And
This is real behind the scenes stuff here going on.
yeah. So that people understand that you're actually there. There he is. You know, see, I'm sharing my screen with you on it right now.
Okay, now Sabrina is Skyping you, and I'm on her computer.
Okay, let me see how I can do this.
Okay.
Okay. So now you're seeing me
I can hear you.
and you're hearing me?
Yeah.
We're good.
Good.
Okay.
All right.
So now you're seeing
Thank
me
you, Sabrina.
I can hear you.
and you're hearing me?
I am hearing you.
Okay.
We're good.
Okay.
All right.
So now you're seeing me
Now let's see if my mic works.
and you're hearing me?
I am hearing you.
Okay. So now we're gonna change. We're gonna have to change our.
Just going there and see if you have to quickly connect.
I think we can do without that. I don't know what
I'm hearing you loud and clear.
sound goes down. There. Okay, we're using the interpreter.
Going to see if you have to quickly connect.
I think we can do without that. I don't know what
I hear you twice though.
sound goes down. There. Okay, we're using the interpreter.
Going to see if you have to.
So you have a second.
We can do without that. I don't know what
I hear you twice though.
I know. Sound goes down. But I don't know what. There. Okay, we're using the
Going
interpreter. Laptop.
to see if you have to.
So you have a second.
No, there's no second nothing.
I hear you twice though.
I know. And it just repeats.
You have a second. Right. It sounds like there's a second device there somewhere playing back. Right. It sounds like there's a second device there somewhere playing back. This is hilarious. Okay, so here's what we're gonna do. We're gonna hang up, and we're gonna have you call from Sabrina's computer once more. All right? Hilarious. Okay. That's funny. Ladies and gentlemen, these are the things. These are the things that, you know, you can't explain. You just really can't explain things like this. All right. So, let's try this once more and see what we get. This is beyond freaky. Because now it is saying that she is unavailable. We did David earlier. David and I had a little chat. He was coming across beautifully. He was hearing me beautifully. We were seeing each other. Everything was fine. And then
Figured it out.
it went crazy. Are you hearing me, David?
Yeah, you hearing me?
I'm hearing you perfectly.
Figured it out. She was listening to the show before she brought her computer in. So the show was playing at the same time you were talking to me on Skype, and that
There
was
we
that
go.
funny delay.
It's Sabrina's fault. We're gonna be.
She admitted it. She admitted, but she rescued me as she always does. I've had a bunch of interviews lately, and there have been screw ups with the mic and things, and she's always come rushing in with her computer and save me.
You see, Sabrina is the hero.
She is. You know, I can't see you, but I think we should be happy that at least we got sound.
Well, you should see me in a minute. In fact, you should be seeing me right now, actually.
No, I don't see you. I just see an icon of you.
Okay. Well, I see you just fine.
Okay.
And I hear you great. So,
okay. So we're good. I think this is as good as we're going to get.
Yeah, I think that's as good as we're going to get tonight. And it's not a perfect start, but it's under the circumstances. It's great. Once again, the music that y'all heard in the background, that was Leon Caldero, track called Act Normal. Big ups to Leon. And, okay, there we go. Ladies and gentlemen, the man of the moment, Mr. I don't even know, Doctor, Professor, Mr. I just call him David.
Yeah, that's what
I don't even see. Oh, you see, David. Tell you what, I'm gonna give you a moment to introduce yourself to everyone.
Okay.
While I jump into the stew pot and join everybody, because I'm not even on my own website.
Really? To make things even more complicated.
Right.
Okay. Well, I'll introduce myself then. So my name's David Livingstone Smith. I have a kind of unusual job. I'm a philosopher. I'm a professor of philosophy. And what can I say? My research interests are stuff that I think kind of can make a difference to the world. I'm interested in race and racism. I'm interested in dehumanization and genocide. And obviously, I don't do sweetness and light. But obviously, equally, as you could hear from my conversation with Kevin, I do have a sense of humor. So I just published my 9th book, which is called On Inhumanity, Dehumanization and How to Resist It. It's a book really for a general public. I tried to keep the content, really strong, but make it accessible to any interested reader. And it was because I wrote that a mutual friend of me and Kevin, David Barish, put us together. And when I heard that Kevin was Jamaican, as I told him, my ears pricked up because my spouse, who just rescued me,
the hero,
computer, she's Jamaican too, and I have a lot of affection for all things Jamaican. So
nice, yes.
Yeah, so here I am.
Now,
so Kevin, are you established yet, or do you want me to?
Oh no, I'm here. I'm here with you. I didn't quite leave you. I just put you on the screen fully, so that people could see you as you introduced yourself a little bit. I didn't leave you.
Okay. So you want to keep on introducing, or because I'm like a blind man here, right? Because I can't see you. All I can do is hear you.
Okay. The joy of being on a computer is that you can pull up kevinstew.com and you can also jump into the chat room there. It's what others call it a chat room. I call it the stew pot because I'm just fancy like that.
Okay.
So, and you don't have to do anything, no signing in, no signing up or anything. Just go to kevinstew.com and boom, you're there.
Okay.
So I haven't gotten any comments that I can see on Facebook Live, which I'll be leaving in a short while too. Yeah, because it's only temporary, but I'll give them a little bit more time tonight.
Sure. I mean, I can go on for as long as you want me to.
Oh, we'll be talking for a while.
Oh, okay, great. So I'm a professor, right? So I can just talk and talk and talk.
It's what you do.
Yeah, that's what I do for a living.
So, David,
Yeah.
what was it that sparked your interest on, well, to philosophy of all things to get involved with philosophy?
Okay. Well, I got into philosophy by accident, really. So the story is that I was a psychotherapist. I was living in London, England, and I was directing an MA program in psychotherapy, and I was really enjoying it. So I thought, I really should get a PhD, because American academics would come over, to England, and they'd say, "Where did you get your PhD?" And I didn't have a PhD. So I ended up going to a philosopher at the University of London who was interested in Freud, and he kind of took me on. But I had no background in philosophy before then. It was just like the most straightforward way to pursue a higher degree.
Right.
And after I did that, I eventually retooled and shifted my professional identity from psychotherapy to philosophy. So that's how I got there. So it's kind of a weird trajectory.
But don't the two kind of go hand in hand?
Well, they can, but they don't necessarily do so. I mean, what philosophers really do is they think about how we think about things, right? So, psychotherapists have all kinds of theories and views about how the mind works and what's helpful and what's unhelpful and so on.
Right.
Philosophers just sort of reflect on, philosophers of psychotherapy, that is, reflect on those things. So you can have philosophy about anything because concepts are all over the place, right?
Right,
so, there's everything we do, both in ordinary life and in every discipline, there are concepts at work. And we philosophers are interested in generally, reflecting on those concepts, criticizing them, making connections with other concepts, and so on. But that's, philosophy in a very restricted sense. I'd say philosophers really do a lot of different things, but they're ideas people. I mean, that's at bottom. They're ideas people. They're interested in the big picture of things. So, you can be philosophical without being trained as a philosopher, although philosophical training really helps because it helps you to think precisely about these things.
Okay.
So, we have philosophy of science, for instance. People think, well, there's philosophy and there's science. Well, philosophy of science is, my wife is a philosopher of science. Philosophers of science think critically about science, how it gets interpreted, mistakes that scientists make, say, in thinking about what they do, and so on. Just as you can have philosophy of religion or philosophy of mathematics or ethics or theory of knowledge or really anything you could name.
When I did do my little bit of research, I tend to do quite a bit. Funny enough, I wasn't one to read a lot when I was growing up. However, now, week in, week out, that's all I seem to do.
That's wonderful.
And when I read that your wife was also a philosopher, I was like, that should be an interesting household.
It is. I can assure you. I learn how mistaken I am about many things from her.
Plus, she's Jamaican. So
Jamaicans are the world authority on everything, right?
Just about. and we have a saying for just about everything too.
Oh yes.
So
I asked her, do they say this in Jamaica? Oh, yeah, they say it.
Yeah, so pretty much.
Whatever it is.
Out the womb, we are philosophers. Pretty much.
Yes, exactly.
No, especially the ones of us that grow with grandparents.
Yeah. but there's some truth in that. There really is. When Sabrina was studying philosophy at first, and she learned about Socrates in ancient Greece, her model, how she pictured Socrates, was there was a guy who sold sugarcane on the street in her hometown called Cane Man Dread. Quiet, gentle, a very thoughtful man. And that was her image of Socrates. And if you read these ancient Greek texts, philosophers are not locked away in some classroom. They're on the street.
Right.
There's this of intellectually active street life where people are talking about politics and morality and all these kinds of things. And I think Jamaica gives a really kind of good picture of it. It certainly helped me to picture that ancient world where people are engaging with one another and not scared to talk about anything.
Right.
Having this back and forth, it's really wonderful. I wish I could get my students to have some of that spirit here.
I wish a lot of people here could have that spirit.
Indeed. Well, this is what your show is about, really. We're having a conversation like that.
Oh yeah, because to kind of cut to the chase, your most recent book is titled "On in Humanity."
Yeah.
I'll tell you, I started reading the book, and I let my better portion look at it. And I said to her, have you seen this? Did I tell you about? And she said, well, you mentioned a couple of things. I said, read this, and I let her read the introduction. Bad choice. I haven't seen the book since.
I was hoping you'd say that.
So after not yet having touched chapter 1, I'm gonna have to wait to get to read this book.
You can get some ongoing reports from her, right?
Yeah. And for those looking on, the book is On Humanity, Dehumanization, and How to Resist It.
It's right here.
And
right here.
Even better, David showing you his copy. I had up the image of the book that I have here.
Okay, cool.
And so, David,
yeah,
when you got started with this book, mindset.
Oh boy. So, a lot of the story is in that introduction. And there are like two things going on.
Right.
Maybe three. So, like I said, I'm a kind of philosopher who's interested in issues that make a difference to human life. I'm not interested in playing mind games and stuff like that. And I'm not interested also in just writing things that a few academics are going to read. As I said in the introduction, foolish as it may be, I want to change the world.
There's
and me
a lot
both. Of work to be done. So, as I say in that introduction, I grew up in the Deep South, and this was in the 1950s and 60s. So y'all see me. I'm not a youngster. And the Deep South in the 1950s and 60s was a brutal place. It was a brutal place for Black people, in particular. This was the era of, it's still the Jim Crow era. It's the era of segregation, raw oppression. I mean, really raw racism. You didn't have to try and figure out if someone was racist or not.
Right.
They said it. So like I said, that there were kids in my high school who used to, for instance, boast about, these are white kids, hunting for Black kids with their BB guns on weekends. That was the spirit of the place. So I wasn't a native to the Deep South. My family moved from New York City when I was a little kid. And of course, a child coming into that world, it's like, what's going on here? I mean, you can't help, unless you've been marinated in the ideology, as most of the Southern kids were, you can't help feeling there's something terribly wrong here.
Right.
My grandmother, who helped me figure that out. So my grandmother she was born in Romania. My mother's parents were Jewish refugees from Eastern Europe. And although she had to quit school at the age of 14, because her father left the family, she and her brothers had to manage, and they lived in a rat-infested tenement. She was a brilliant, self-educated woman, and she explained all this stuff to me. She knew about the genocide of Native Americans. She knew about the brutal oppression of Black Americans. She knew about anti-Semitism. So that was like a crucial influence, all those experiences, that I took them forward with me.
Right.
And the enlightenment that my grandmother provided for me. Then later on, I'm an academic and I'm writing books. I wrote this book on war, which came out in 2007. And when I was researching that book, I came across all this stuff on dehumanization. And I thought, wow, these people talking about other people as subhuman creatures, as a way to sort of oil the wheels of slaughter and war. And I thought, this is so important and so interesting. And then I found there wasn't really much of a literature on it. And so that launched me into this topic academically. So I wrote a book on this and came out in 2011 called Less Than Human.
Right.
And then since that time, of course, my views have evolved and they've become more sophisticated, and I've, carefully considered criticisms of my views and so on. So On in Humanity is like the updated version, but really written. I think it's such an urgent topic that it's written for everyone.
And it's quite timely, I must say.
Unfortunately, yeah. I mean, unfortunately, it's sadly, very often timely. But I think we're at a very crucial state right now in this country and in the world.
Yes.
And we need to address these sorts of issues intelligently. If you want to take something apart, you need to know how it's put together. And that's what I try to do in the book, explain how these horrible views and the actions that they inspire are put together.
I was elated, to say the least, when David Barash said, I'd like you to meet my friend David. And I thought, boy, this is like a scene out of Twilight Zone. I used to do this with people that I knew because I had several friends named Kevin.
Uh-huh.
And in my high school, I had two others with both first and last name being the same as mine.
Whoa!
So we had a whale of a time.
Yeah, I bet.
So, and when he said that you're a philosopher, and he told me the story of him telling you about me, or was that you that told me the story? One of you, Davids, told me that story.
Maybe both of us did.
Probably. I was like, this is perfect, because when you look on my website, one of the very first things that you come across is have acceptance through enlightenment.
Yeah.
And I told the story about the creation of that slogan, and I pretty much live by that.
Oh, wonderful.
Because and you just said it. We pull things apart so that we can know how they work together.
They work, yeah. So we can fix them or take them apart and dispose of them or make them better.
Yeah. And this has been the mission of the night shift with DJ Kevin Stew. To
Oh, that's perfect.
Try to make at least one person. If
Yeah.
I reach one person, I've done my job.
That's how I feel with my students.
So I can't be that bad.
Yeah.
Either that or you're not that good. So I can't be that bad.
Yeah.
And you've been a professor of philosophy for how long?
Oh, well, I really switched to philosophy, gosh, little less than 20 years ago.
Oh,
I
not
was,
that
I
long.
was teaching other things before then. I kind of transitioned when Sabrina, my spouse, did her PhD in philosophy, and I thought, wow, this is really interesting what she's reading. I kind of read along with her, and that consolidated my philosophical identity.
Right.
Yeah, and I've kind of carved out this area in philosophy on dehumanization. Yeah, before I started writing about it, philosophers weren't writing about it, weren't thinking about it very much, and it's changing now, and I'm very glad of that. Because the more people there are thinking about these things, the more people there are who can help me see my own errors
Right.
and understand things more accurately.
Yeah. Yeah. And we learn from each other. It's I believe it's one of the gifts of socialization.
Yeah, if we're open, if we're open. See, I think you do me a favor if you show me where I'm wrong. And we need each other to keep to stay honest, as it were, to think better. If we're really interested in truth, this is what I try to teach my students. It's difficult, because people want to win. But if we're interested in truth, we need other people to help us. We need them to share their perspective with us and help us really think critically about our own perspective.
I think I'd enjoy being in one of your classes.
Oh, I'd
Because
enjoy having you in one of my classes.
because I think that's the kind of approach I take to understanding.
Yeah.
And I really believe that you try to understand someone else, not so that you can be right or that they can be right, but
Yeah.
just that, so that you can understand, so that you can grow and
Yeah.
come to a better place of relating to each
Yeah.
other. I don't know if that's a psychology concept or a philosophy concept.
I think it's both, because here's another thing. The world isn't divided up into like, here's psychology and here's philosophy and here's this. It's one world, and we can come at it in lots of different ways, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I totally agree with you, but just to in case any of your audience think I'm some sort of a saint who always lives that way, let me disabuse you of that illusion. I can be a real jerk.
We all have our moments, David. Come on now.
At the moment, sometimes they're very frequent, but the important thing is to try and recover from that jerkiness and open yourself to the other's point of view, and with appropriate humility.
Yes. And with a superhero wife like Sabrina, I'm sure you have help.
Oh, I have so much help, and I mean that. I mean that to the bottom of my heart. She has shaped my intellect in so many ways.
Now, we're gonna go a little bit deeper into understanding what humanity and dehumanizing
Okay.
is really like. But before I do that, I want to say goodbye to Facebook Live. It's been real. I got a notification about something here, and I don't even know what that is. But I do invite y'all who are on Facebook Live to jump on into the Stew Pot on kevinstew.com. The link to kevinstew.com is right there in the description, so you have no excuse. Just click on it, and you're there. You don't have to do anything else. If you want to change your name from a number to your name, go ahead, jump on in. But it is a judgment-free zone. We just ask that you keep it clean. your opinions are welcome, and you can call, you can text 773-789-STEW. That's 773-789-7839. You can also WhatsApp. You can't Skype right now because I'm on the Skype line with David. But call, text, jump in the stew pot, and comment. Empress Unique, glad they could join me on Facebook. Come on over, kevinstew.com, and everybody else that is watching, okay? All right, so...
Okay. So you want me to explain to you and your viewers a little bit what I mean by dehumanization, what it is, and that's hooked up to the idea of humanness, humanity.
Right.
So if you Google the word dehumanization, you'll get something like 8 million hits.
Mm-hmm.
And if you actually read what's said, not in all 8 million of them, people use the word in all kinds of different ways. And even if you go to the scholarly literature, people use the word in all kinds of different ways. So it's really important if you're engaging with this subject to be really clear about what's meant. So what I mean by dehumanization is thinking of others as subhuman, as less than human creatures. And that's not like butterflies and puppy dogs.
Mm.
Right? It's a negative thing. It has the function of helping people to harm or exterminate other groups of people. That's what it's for. That's what it does when it fulfills its purpose. So that's really very important. So if you look at any genocide, if you look at episodes of mass atrocity, you almost always find this process of thinking of those who are getting enslaved or exterminated or abused as subhuman creatures. Now, so that's like a really important thing to study, I think.
Yes.
It's got such power. People slip into it so easily. The two examples I use most extensively, and you see both of these in the book. In my next book, which is with the publisher now, I go into much more detail about these, but two examples are the genocide of European Jews, the Holocaust, and the lynching of African Americans. And you see this very, very clearly in both. You know, the victims, who in both cases were some of the most vulnerable people in a society. Victims are presented as beasts, as monsters, as vermin, as evil creatures. And it's just very horrible. I mean, particularly, most Americans don't really understand what went on in lynchings, because the way it's presented in movies and on TV is just really cleaned up. It's just unbelievably gruesome. You know, before audiences of sometimes 10, 15,000 people, a person, usually a black man, would be tortured for hour upon hour and then burnt alive. And then the crowd would move in to get body parts as souvenirs. And if you look at the description, say in the press, I go through these old newspapers, the victim is described in blatantly sort of dehumanizing ways. And in fact, these acts of burning a person to death were often called by white Southerners barbecues, you know, to sort of emphasize the dehumanizing component. So that's really what I mean by dehumanization. And what I've tried to do is really figure out how it works, because it's kind of puzzling. You know, you take another person that looks just like and acts just like a human being, anyone we'd consider a human being.
Right.
You know, And how can you look at them and think, well, no, they're really kind of a monster or a rat or something like a louse? Like, how does that work? And I mean, the short version, it's actually kind of a long story. There are a lot of bells and whistles on my account of this.
Mm-hmm.
Although I explain it in ways that, like I said, anyone can understand. But the basic idea is we think of human beings as what makes someone a human being is something on the inside, not on the outside.
Right.
So dehumanized people are seen sort of like counterfeit human beings. They might look human. They're sort of human on the outside, but on the inside, where it matters, they're not human at all. And these ideas, which, you know, I'll repeat again, they're so powerful. They've been responsible and continue to be responsible for such tragedy and such cruelty and such injustice. They don't come from inside people. They come from outside. They come from the propaganda of manipulative politicians or beliefs that are just cemented into a culture like in the Deep South where I grew up, where it was like in the air people breathed, right? And you know, that's really powerful because most of the beliefs we have, most of the things we think we know, are things we get from other people.
Right.
That's important for human life, right? You know, very few of the things we believe we've actually seen.
Yes.
Our whole knowledge of history, of science, and so on, that comes from people who are supposed to know, people who are supposed to be experts. And that's great because that allows human culture to flourish. We can hand down knowledge from one generation to the next. But the problem is when someone is set up as an expert who has a toxic political agenda, right? And can tell us those people there, they might look human, but they're not really human. They're on the inside, they're monsters. They're demonic beings. And we take that on board. And then we get the Holocaust. Then we get, you know, all of the tragedies of history.
You know, hearing you say that, to bring it very current, when you watch TV, when you watch crime dramas or any of these movies that have anything to do with a prison, there's a prison scene or something like that, or a court scene, the accused, the perpetrators, they're often described, especially when it comes to things like murders, described as monsters.
Yeah.
Described as heartless.
Yes, that's correct. And that's a strategy that prosecutors often use when they're wanting to get the death penalty.
Yes.
Because, of course, if they're monsters, they deserve killing, right?
We need to get rid of them.
Yeah, but monsters are fictional. There aren't any monsters. The most evil people in history are not monsters. They're still human beings.
Right.
We think of them as monsters because we don't want to look in that mirror, right? Because they show us what we're capable of. So we want to create a distance. We want to say they're totally different from us. They're not human beings at all. In the case of prisoners and the criminal justice system generally,
yes,
I think there's a great deal of dehumanization involved, but often it's not explicit. And here's the reason why. 400 years ago, people would say that those who they oppressed, they'd say they're demonic. They're in league with Satan, right? Because people, that was the currency of the day, right? In medieval Europe, people could seriously say Jews are demonic, and they meant it literally. That really, unless you're in a really religious fundamentalist circle, say in the United States, that doesn't really cut it. So the words change, but the ideas stay the same. And the idea of inherent criminality, I think, works the same way as saying that someone is demonic, bad to the bone, impossible to them to change. There's
Right.
no story that explains how they became what they are. It's just that they are deep down, evil. We use terms like a criminal. We call a person a criminal rather than someone who has committed a criminal act. There's a world of difference there. The first one, you're
Yes.
saying what they are. The second one, you're saying something about what they
What
did.
they did.
Yeah. So, yeah, this stuff is all around. It's not always explicit, although sometimes it's very explicit.
But let's take it into the homes.
Mm-hmm.
And just last Wednesday, my guest was a domestic violence survivor. And when we're talking about dehumanizing, we listen to, we hear, we don't necessarily listen to it, we hear some songs played in certain circles, whether it be in parties or on the radio. You get the edited versions and such.
Yeah.
And people are talked about in certain ways.
Yeah.
Women are described in derogatory ways, and it seems to be cool. It's the hip thing to do. And then you end up hearing about domestic violence. I was going to say a man beating a woman, but it happens with women beating men too. We just don't hear about it as often.
That's correct. Yeah.
And it seems to come from a place of one considering the other as less than on par.
Yes, that's right. So I make a distinction here. Let's look at the continuity rather than the difference, because I think that's important in light of what you just said. There are all kinds of degradation. People think of others as inferior human beings, as defective human beings, as primitive human beings, as worthless human beings. So, that's built into misogyny and sexism. It's built into homophobia. It's built into racism. That's why I call dehumanization racism on steroids. Because the idea with racism and all these other things too, although I think they all have their special dynamics. So I try not to lump all these things together because I think we need to take apart and understand each of them.
Yes.
When you make that move to dehumanization, the other isn't simply a defective human being. They are not even a human being. And that liberates, if you look at how human beings generally think it's legitimate to treat animals, that allows tremendous abuses. And when it goes a little bit step further, and this is really, really important, and they're seen not just as animals, but as monsters. They're like animals in human form. That's a monster. Then it becomes like if you have this attitude, it's your duty to harm them, to put them in their place, to reduce them. So there's a line. There's certainly a clear line from things like the attitudes that inspire domestic violence to the genocides and to the atrocities that feed on dehumanization.
To the slave owner, to the executioner.
Exactly.
To the trade, the slave trader, to the human trafficker.
Yeah. Yep, that's right. So one of the people that I draw on because his writings are really, really interesting. And when you get that book back, you'll see there's a chapter on it, if you ever get it back. If you don't get it back, if it's like held for ransom, I'll send you another one. There was a fellow, an English clergyman in the 17th century. He sailed to Virginia in 1665. He was a man named Morgan Godwin. Mm-hmm. And he got himself into trouble right away with the church authorities in Virginia. So he left then and went to Barbados. Now, Barbados, at that particular time, was one of the more brutal of the Caribbean slaveholding nations, or colonies, I should say. Mm-hmm. And he wrote both about the atrocities, and he wrote quite explicitly that people told him that enslaved Africans are not human beings. They don't have human souls. They are, as he put it, ranked with the brute beasts. And he campaigned relentlessly against this view, because his concern, he was a very religious man, right? He wanted enslaved people to be admitted into the church. But the slaveholders did not want that at all, because there was some uncertainty in the British colonies whether it was legitimate to enslave a Christian. So they didn't want enslaved people knowing anything about Christianity.
Right.
He called that trade preferred, profit. What was it? Profit preferred before religion. That was his little slogan there. In other words, they could only keep this engine that generated such incredible wealth for Great Britain in this case, but of course all the other colonizing nations generated tremendous wealth on the backs of enslaved people in the Caribbean, in places like Brazil and in North America. And all the stately homes of England and so on. That was on this blood. So, there it was very inconvenient. There was a lot of motivation for not thinking of these people as people, not thinking of them as human beings. And that's very often how both ideas about race and racism on steroids, dehumanization, really get traction.
Listening to you saying it, I see the pieces coming together. I just see them falling into place. And for me, it's not like an aha moment. And I don't know if that would be considered normal, whatever normal is. It's not as a surprise to me. Because it leads to the questions that some of the questions that I ask all the time, as to why we do the things we do. That's why I have Real Talk. It's to try to look at some of the things that we do and why we do it.
Yeah.
And even in some other cultures, if and how they do similar things.
Yes, that's really important, because these things. Some people say, well, this is all fairly recent European invention. It really isn't. It goes way back in history. It's found all over the world. And that's because, and this is a really important thing as well, the human mind has kind of vulnerabilities. Just like a computer can get hacked, our minds can get hacked.
Yes.
And propagandists understand this. So the subtitle of the book, Dehumanization and How to Resist It, there's that how to resist it bit. And what's really important there, among other things, is self-knowledge, understanding how we work and what those vulnerabilities are. So we can be vigilant, so we can catch ourselves when we're getting seduced by the fine words of manipulative politicians.
when you told the story of slaves being not having a human soul,
Hmm.
you fast forward to today and you hear a lot
Yeah.
of people talking about getting in touch with their spirit animal,
Yeah.
and they have gotten so zen that now connecting with their spirit animal is the thing.
Yeah. Oh, God.
But this was the same concept that they used to enslave a whole
Very good
nation.
point. Yeah. Yeah. So the difference is people who talk about, and I don't mean to disrespect anyone, by the way, their spirit animals are very often doing it from a position of luxury. No one is thrusting this on them.
Yes.
And it's I'm tempted to say it's sort of a game. But an enslaved person who is told and is treated that they are non-human animals, they're subhuman animals. They do not have a human soul. They have the soul of a beast.
A beast. Not even a specific animal, a beast.
Beast, yeah, a beast. That's a very different position to be in, right? That's not something anyone has any choice about. And now imagine you're in a position where this is what you are brought up with. This is in the air that you breathe.
Mm.
Your parents are the most recent of generations who have been brutalized. What does that do to your conception of yourself? So yeah, it's really that's such a good point, Kevin. I mean, that's so ironic, isn't it?
It's one of the things that's kind of ridiculous to me. The thing about not wanting slaves to be Christians because of the concept of enslaving Christians, that seemed to have transcended many generations, because I grew up hearing, if you want to keep something from a black person, you put it in a book.
Yeah.
If so, you don't
Wow.
want a black person to know something, you put it in a book, because black people, and it was so crafted to say that black people don't read,
That's incredible.
which is definitely not the case.
No, it's definitely not the case, but it is a way of keeping people from reading,
Yes,
right? If you're told that's your nature.
right. Which
Wow, that's so awful.
which I know you have the luxury of approaching it from so many different scholastic angles,
Yeah.
because you did the psychology aspect as well as the philosophy.
Yeah.
Recently I did a course in social psychology, and I thought how all this resonated well with me, but I still had questions. I still had,
Yeah.
and the more I researched and the more I presented information on some topic that had been on my mind, because that's another way how I share with the general public, is these things come to mind and I present it on my Real Talk show.
Yeah.
And the more I look up and the more I question, is the more that it comes, and I have more questions. So
Sure.
one of the fears of getting to meet people like you and Barash is I wouldn't end up doing much else but talking with you guys.
That doesn't sound too scary.
Well, they got bills I got bills to pay and
Yeah.
such. So it's
You get tired out eventually. Paying bills
But coming back to the topic though, when we someone in the stew pot is saying, I guess I didn't listen to that BS, I guess, about black people not reading.
Yeah.
One of the things that I see still happening today is outside of the individuals who are considered less than human, you have the opposite side of the equation. And if there's anything that we have learned from simple math, is what you do on one side of the equation
Yeah,
has to
that's
have a
right.
corresponding action on the other side.
Yeah.
So you have the dehumanized,
Yeah.
someone has to do the dehumanizing.
Yeah. And by definition, they're elevating themselves. Yeah.
So the further we move from the concept of we all are one,
Mm.
is the less likelihood of this ever getting put to bed.
That's right. That's right. And it's always been in the interests of some people to keep it going. What I really want to do is try as best I can in my imperfect ways to try and give people the tools to at least resist. I mean, that's a modest goal, just to resist. And hey, it would be great if we could eliminate this entirely, but I'm not that. You know, Cornel West, who very kindly blurbed my book, says I'm hopeful, but I'm not optimistic. You know, I don't have a rosy picture of the future, but I'm hopeful in that the idea of being hopeful is pushing on. You know, trying to do the best and try and make things as best as we can, trying to, when we finally leave the world, leave it a little bit better than we came into it.
I have the liberty of referring to her as a friend of mine. She was a guest of mine the second time around fairly recently. And she had completed a book called Isms, Raising Race Consciousness and Awareness, and looking at sexism, racism, and other isms. And the narrative continues, and it seems to be among those who have somehow been exposed to, let's call it, the darker side.
Yeah.
So that they have this wider view and this more enlightened view. Me growing up in Jamaica, I didn't know racism as much as I knew classism.
Yes. I know that well.
Right. And with your heritage, you are well aware of what it means to be oppressed and even hunted. Not because you're white.
That's right.
And I'm pretty sure people look at you and they say, but what does he know? Why is he writing something about dehumanization? And he's privileged.
Exactly. Sabrina says exactly the same stuff as you're saying. And I know about how it works in Jamaica with class and not race. Sabrina says, I didn't become black till I came to the United States.
Listen.
That is the concept flows around. It doesn't have that kind of significance. It's as here. It doesn't have that kind of weight. Whereas in the United States, it just saturates everything.
And it boggled me in 1996 when I heard the question, are you black or are you just Jamaican?
Wow.
And I'm like, come again?
Wow.
And that question wasn't even asked to me.
Yeah. Jeez.
When I heard that question was asked, I was glad.
Question.
I was glad I didn't get to ask that question because I didn't know then what I know now. And even now, I have difficulty answering that question with a straight face and not wanting to slap somebody.
This is like music to my ears. Really is.
And it comes from ignorance.
Yeah.
I was gonna go off into probably a whole lot of, but to sum it up, it comes from ignorance. You know, here it is, someone in the stew pot saying, "Hey, I was once told that I wasn't black, I was Jamaican." Well, does that mean that I get treated differently if I'm Jamaican versus if I'm black? And how do you know I'm Jamaican? Do I have to not talk for you to not be able to differentiate if I'm Jamaican or African American? And what is this African American thing anyway? You know, I did a show, David, on where did Negro come from? And the week before I did that show, I did one called Where Did Caucasians Come From?
Okay, yeah. So you know that story. Look, this whole was one of my most controversial views, and Sabrina and I are both like 100% on this together. The whole race thing is so mad and so toxic. I personally think that racism is built into the concept of race itself. If you look at how these categories get manufactured over time,
yes,
it's in the interest of oppression. I mean, just take the category black. It's very, very unlikely that before the Europeans started purchasing slaves in West Africa, West Africans called themselves black. In fact, in a number of African nations, the category black doesn't even exist.
Right.
Right? What would they call themselves? They refer to themselves by their ethnic groups. I'm Akan, or I'm Igbo, or I'm Fulani, or whatever.
Right.
I think the whole idea of blackness here is a European invention, lumping all these very diverse people together. And basically it meant enslavable.
Yeah.
Right? It's a toxic idea. But, you know, unfortunately, many people with their hearts in the right place who are interested in justice keep reinforcing these concepts. I think we need to take them apart. I think we need to dispense with them.
Yes. I totally agree with you. You know, one of the hashtags that I use all the time is changing the narrative. And I don't know if people realize how powerful the narrative is.
They don't.
When you have a child and you tell this child at the age of 2 that you are beautiful, you are smart, you are strong, you use these positive words to this child from the age of 2. And you continue using these words. What the difference that you will see in that child as an adult is stark.
Yeah.
Compared to the child that you tell, you know, you're an idiot.
Yeah.
You'll not amount to anything.
Exactly. Or even, you know, sort of more implicitly, like the child asks a question and the response is shut up.
Yeah.
Shut up, girl. Shut up, boy. Instead of, you know, reinforcing the child's curiosity, because you can just say, look, I don't know the answer to your question. It's a really great question. Maybe we can figure it out. But, you know, one of the, of course, driving forces there is if parents are uneducated, they feel ashamed. And it's hard for them to engage with children in that sort of way often.
And again,
I totally agree. And these toxic ideas just we're marinated in them. You have the advantage of being Jamaican and coming from a world where there's a chapter in my book called How We Do Race. Like the American way of doing race feels alien. Sometimes Sabrina has to look at herself like, oh, that's what it is. You know?
And, you know, I wonder sometimes how you two go by year after year, because I'm pretty sure there are times when it's really challenging, and I don't know who holds who back more. If she holds you back and says, "Come, all right, there, now, remember,
Yeah.
remember who you are. Let's go."
Yeah. Well, I think we both have a sense of the price we will pay if we say certain things. And there's some things that she can say and some things that I can say. We're actually thinking of writing a book together so we can say everything.
I think that would be excellent.
You know, I'll have a conversation with anyone if they're interested in having a conversation. But I'm not interested in being abused and being told I'm a privileged white man and stuff like that.
And, that comes from the individual who would say something like that, not knowing the story.
Yeah. It's often white people who say that, but it's I would say mostly, actually.
Jeez, boy. And these are the things that bother me. You mentioned the parent that is uneducated.
Yeah.
Here it is changing the narrative again. This whole concept of feeling shame.
Yeah.
For what? There has been so much that I did not know, and then I learned it. What happened? It's one less thing that I did not know.
Yeah, sure.
I may not have been...
There's an infinite number of things that none of us know.
Yes. So I may not have become an expert at it.
Yeah.
But now I know something about it.
That's
and
nice.
When we start changing the narratives from, well, I don't know what that is and I'm ashamed that I don't know. Okay, why are you ashamed that you don't know? The fact that you don't know is that you weren't exposed to it, or somebody didn't take the time out to teach you.
Yeah.
How does that become your fault?
Exactly. But people take that on board. They confuse not having the opportunity to learn certain things because of their circumstances. They confuse that with being stupid or defective or something. So and they're ashamed. And that's awful.
So now we come to the dehumanized, who feels this shame because they're oppressed.
Yeah.
And for the most part, because the person with the loudest voice gets the most attention, the people that hold the gramophones are the ones that are doing the oppressing, the megaphones.
That's right. They've got access.
So they're the ones who are constantly talking down to the oppressed, and the ones who are oppressed don't have it within themselves to say, but no, I am no different. And I can rise above this. Here's someone saying, I put myself in a position to learn something new every day. We can learn something new every day.
Yeah. So one of the really hard things as a teacher is my students, I think it's a very American thing, by the way. They're terrified of making mistakes or seeming or feeling stupid or saying things and people will think poorly of them. And of course you can't learn.
Right.
I say, look, if you're learning philosophy, you're going to just feel dumb. That's just how I feel dumb all the time. And And I'm up here in front of the class making a fool of myself every day. Let's spread it around. You can make a fool of yourself too. We can all make fools of ourselves, and just let go. Have a good laugh.
Right.
It's very hard. They've been subjected to an educational system which is focused on getting it right, getting the right answers. And when you do philosophy, you just can't approach it in that kind of way, right? It's a matter of really opening yourself to the many possible answers there are to a question, and feeling really ignorant about things that really matter. So yeah, I think that spirit is very important, and it's not cultivated in the culture. We need it.
So, how then do we encourage the culture on a larger scale to join the movement, to understand that we can change the narrative?
Because, and that's the $1 million question, isn't it?
Yeah.
People have to understand that something is worth their while in order to do it in the first place. And I think the reward structures in the society are working against this kind of project. People are rewarded for attitudes that you and I think are not very productive. And as long as that's the case.
So who's handing out these rewards?
People. Well, we've got a whole system of people handing out rewards, and people who have risen up the ranks have often been socialized into the system. The system, as my wife is very often saying, really does, though, depend on individuals, right? Everyone has opportunities to push back.
Yes.
And again, this is something I try to cultivate in my students. This is a space where you can have the freedom to push back against what people are trying to tell you to think. So, I don't know. I mean, the sorts of disciplines like mine that encourage this are not exactly highly regarded in the world, or at least in the United States nowadays. I don't know. So maybe hardship will help this along.
So, looking at the reward for those who are handing out the rewards, those who are getting the rewards, I guess the whole idea of value now comes into play.
Sure.
And I am thinking that as it relates to the dehumanized, that value is either misguided.
Yeah.
I can't say it's taken away. It's definitely
right. And when you eventually get the book back, you'll be surprised that so many things that you've been saying are expressed in there, and sometimes in almost the same way. So
that's funny.
So look, when people are when I talk about dehumanization, and I say that certain groups are seen as less than human, one objection that people make is, but sometimes they're seen as more powerful, and that is absolutely true. In fact, it's almost universal. So if we take the example of how Nazis looked at Jews were seen as diabolically intelligent. They're the secret controllers of the world. And black people in the United States were seen as, and still are, by the way, we know this, seen as insensitive to pain, and big and strong. In fact, here's something that I don't know if anyone has noticed except me. And I tweeted about this, and a lot of people said, why didn't I notice how racist that is? So if you look at in the movies, and you say it's a film about slavery.
Mm-hmm.
And these Africans are, they've been taken from the shores of West Africa and the Middle Passage, this grueling Middle Passage. And if you look at them, if you look at the actors, they look like bodybuilders.
Yes.
I mean, that's insane. And if you actually look at illustrations, say from the 18th century, of the men and women who've come off these ships, they're like human skeletons. They're like prisoners in Auschwitz, right? So that's part of the the racist trope that just goes under the radar. Like the film Amistad, that's a real good example. I sometimes show my students a shot of the way that the enslaved people are portrayed by actors in that film as looking like bodybuilders, side by side with an illustration from the 1700s of enslaved people fresh off the ship. And it's shocking. In any case, the point I wanted to get to is really what's going on in dehumanization. When we dehumanize others, and by the way, when we racialize others as well, we see them as having less intrinsic value than us. It's like there's a hierarchy of value, a scale of value. And in themselves, the dehumanizer thinks of the dehumanized in themselves as just having less value, just as like people think of non-human animals as having less intrinsic value. Now, that's perfectly compatible with thinking of them as physically strong or super intelligent or, whatever the racist trope happens to be.
Right.
Right? So there's a lot of confusion about that. In fact, some psychology uses the term superhumanization, which I don't like, because you can see someone as super strong and think of them as essentially, inferior deep down.
Well, wasn't that one of the fears that the slave owners had? Because these slaves were doing hard labor, which means they were getting stronger every day.
Yeah. So there was an ideology in the United States, say before the Civil War, which was very strange, and actually which has persisted in very strange ways in the medical profession to this day. And it was the idea that Black people are basically feeble, and they have defective lungs, and their heart doesn't pump blood very well into their brain, so they're unintelligent. So making them do this hard work is for their own benefit, right? Because, it's like getting their lungs working and their heart working and so on. That was a strange justification, which sat side by side with the fear that you're talking about. See, people have to make up stories, and they don't even know they're making the stories up. I mean, these people really believe this stuff.
Yes. In
order to justify their actions. Now, this persists to this day. I mean, I think the real go-to person to that is a woman named Dorothy Roberts, who is a legal scholar of Jamaican background, by the way. Her father, was it her father or her mother? Her mother is Jamaican. And she writes about the persistence of these ideas. So to this day, when doctors measure lung capacity, they use a device called a spirometer. It was introduced in the 19th century.
Yes.
And they set it for race. There's like a race dial.
Are you kidding me?
The idea being that Black lungs don't function as well as white lungs. So there's a different, what I say to my students, let's ask Usain Bolt about that, how Black lungs function. In fact, there's a story that came out slightly different, but on the same theme about, it was in the Washington Post today, about concussions, football players' concussions.
Yes.
And now it turns out that the standard used for judging whether a football player has been brain damaged is different for white football players and for Black football players, on the racist assumption that black people, their brains don't work very well anyway, right? So, this stuff is like really
You
still
mean
alive.
like right now? That
Right
is
now, yes. You can, I'll send you a link to the article when we're done talking.
Thank you. These are the things that boggle my mind.
Yes.
And I don't know if it is because I grew up in another country and came to this one,
It helps. I'm sure it helps.
but it doesn't even make nonsense. This is how much sense it doesn't make. Not even nonsense.
It's madness. It's sheer madness.
It's and this even drives me more to make sure that I keep doing this, because I need to reach those one people.
Good.
And that might sound grammatically incorrect, but when you really look into it,
Who cares?
each time I do this, if I reach one person,
Yeah.
that is how I come up with that, reach that one
Yeah.
people.
Yeah, this happens little by little. And if that's the best we can do, that's what we do.
And I thank you for your writings too,
Oh, thank you.
because those help to open the eyes of many.
I hope so.
Those that are said to not read because you're gonna put something in a book. Listen, get the audiobook.
Exactly. Yeah. The audiobook of my book is coming out on September 8th.
Right. Get the
People
audiobook.
get it. Yeah.
You have a problem reading? Fine. Get the audiobook.
Yeah.
You have a problem hearing too? I doubt that. Come
Yeah.
on. The time for excuses have far gone. And what is happening in our society now, where just a few days ago you have this black man who is now crippled,
Yeah.
being shot in the back 7 times.
Yeah.
No, if you can hold on to the man's shirt, you can tackle him.
Exactly.
Why are we using a gun? Now, there was thought that a gun was seen.
I don't
It
care.
doesn't happen the same way with a white person.
No, it doesn't. And it doesn't happen the same way where police don't routinely carry guns either. They manage. They're trained.
Exactly.
Yeah. So, yeah, I mean, this stuff, like I said, it's everywhere in our society. We're marinated in it. And we're not helped to think about it. Now, I teach a course called Race, Racism, and Beyond. I'm teaching it this semester. In fact, tomorrow morning I start teaching. And these kids, it's almost, I teach in the state of Maine. It's like wall-to-wall white kids.
Right.
But that's a great thing because I want them to do this.
Yes.
And they're just not taught. I mean, they go through school and they're not taught the horrors of the history of race. And, I tell them, you're going to find out it's much worse than you ever thought. And they are receptive. They are receptive. I've worked out how to do it over the years. I mean, that helps. So I'm not putting their backs up right away.
Yeah.
If I start talking about white supremacism right away, they're going to be freaking out.
Right.
I have to get them there. First of all, I have to learn the history, which I do with films. I have a whole bunch of films I show them. Because if I just say it, who's going to believe it, right? But if there's actual good documentary, they're going to believe it. And then the concepts, like why so many people think that race is an invention. It's not something that's part of the natural world at all. It's a concoction. And so that helps them think about it. So first they realize, oh gosh, this is really worthwhile to think about because there's just so much injustice connected with it. And then this is how we can think about it. And then they're ready to to talk about white supremacism
Yeah.
without being defensive. And what I hear from them more than anything else at the end of the course is, I'm so angry I was never taught the truth.
That's right there.
And I'm not teaching them wild stuff. I mean, this is all straight up historical, factual stuff. And that's just a beautiful thing. And I hope it sticks with them.
And it's not the history that paints the illusion of what the slave trade was. It's I am, as far as I can see from your what you have been through and your writings, you're exposing them to the history, the true stories.
Correct.
Not the Christopher Columbus coming to landing on a shore and discovering savages.
Yeah. Well, yeah, that's the idea. We should be interested in truth, and nothing like it has been really presented to them. I mean, so they don't know really anything much about what happened after slavery was officially abolished in the United States. And I say officially abolished because we have very good evidence now of how black people were re-enslaved by other means.
Yes.
And that out-and-out slavery persisted in remote parts of the South well into the 20th century.
Yeah, there was a law in Louisiana that just got removed.
You're familiar with that. The woman who interviews these elderly people in Louisiana. Yeah.
Yeah.
And they're like, whoa. And that's yesterday, right?
Yeah, it's not like it was 20, 30 years ago. This was just the other day, you know.
And that these things don't die quickly, right? These ideologies, they're very persistent. They can go underground and persist for centuries. So, it's an ongoing struggle to, once these notions get rooted, it's an ongoing struggle to constrain them, to deal with them, to detoxify them, to hopefully make them disappear.
One day I want to sit with you and David and your wives and we just talk.
Yeah, it sounds awesome.
Because
I'll have to introduce you to some other awesome Davids as well, by the way.
Oh, there are more of y'all? Yeah, but we and these are bits of dialogues that we should have and that are necessary.
Yeah.
Someone just put in the stew pot, as a black child going to school in this country, only the pretty stuff, quote unquote pretty stuff, was mentioned in the history books that were available to me at the time.
Sure.
None of what you're talking about was ever mentioned as it was a part of history, as if it wasn't a part of history.
No one knows about it. I mean, I have a whole bookshelf of books on lynching, this history of lynching. The material is out there, but it's just not, people are not presented with it. The professional historians understand it.
Yes.
But this should be public knowledge. And I think the whole, what people call the conversation on race, which I think is a silly term, with like more conversation, I think it really, you can't have that conversation without education.
Yeah.
Education of the real facts of the matter.
Some Rastafarian entertainers out of Jamaica would say, and somehow I guess listening to them after a couple of times, I start doing it too. where I avoid using the word conversation and just go to dialogue because I'm not trying to con anybody.
Right. That's a good one, actually. I'm going to remember that.
So, but we, the narratives, it comes back to the narratives
Yeah, it
and
does.
the power of in the tongue.
Hmm.
Before there were books, before there was papyrus, before
Hmm.
scribblings on the walls,
Yeah,
everything was
the
taught
speech. Yeah,
by mouth.
yeah.
So there's power in our tongues. And it is power to those that you're speaking with,
Mm,
presenting to.
mm,
And there's power with speaking with yourself.
mm.
And people might say, well, that's crazy talk. Fine. I will take crazy.
Good.
I will not take less than human. But at
Yeah.
least, if I'm crazy, it's a human trait.
Oh, yeah, yeah. I believe in. There was a psychoanalyst who said there are two kinds of mental illness: sanity and insanity, and we should strive to be unsane.
Mm.
That's the good kind of crazy.
Mm. Yeah. I think I fall in that category.
Yeah, I can tell you do.
Some people would differ and beg to differ, but I think I really fall in that category, and
Hmm.
I strive to be in that category.
Well, from what I can tell from having the conversation with you tonight, you're doing a hell of a good job.
I thank you, sir.
This is wonderful work. This is what we need more of.
This is my passion, and I will do this for as long as I can, and it's what I get up each morning to do.
Wonderful.
It's not the only thing I get to do, unfortunately,
Yeah.
but it's what I get up to do.
Yeah.
And
Hey, after we're finished, I'll be taking the garbage out and all the things that make life are necessary for a life. That all those provide us with the foundations. So if we're fortunate for doing what we love to do.
so I think what is going to happen is that you're gonna see some of your books going out because someone just posted in the stew pot that saying thank you, David. I now have a myriad of books to read.
Oh, that's wonderful.
So
And your listeners, they should feel free to contact me, to email me if there's anything they want to ask me, or if they want recommendations of books on these topics, not just my book, but
Well-
books about the real history and movies about the real history too.
well, let's get the contacts on how people can reach you.
Yeah, well, they can email me at dsmith at une.edu. That's the
That's
best way to
easy.
reach me. So dsmith at une.edu. And they can go to my website as well. There are a bunch of resources on there. It's mostly talks that I've given and little essays and so on, but they might find some of that stuff interesting. Talks where I say I go into the details of the horrors of lynching, for instance, the real history.
Someone asked a question. How many do you think will mishear what I have said when I say I am unsane?
Probably quite a few.
This is my new mantra. Hey,
Okay. All right.
more power to you. But David, thank you very much. Sabrina, thank you for coming to the rescue.
Honey, you hear that? Sabrina? He's thanking you for coming to the rescue.
I truly appreciate the fact that you just right on point like that.
She said, "You're welcome. You're welcome," yelling from the other room.
Okay, cool. But yeah, I'm going to find. So we have to find a way to. In fact, we will make it work. I'll get you all on, and we'll talk. And
Sounds cool.
I'm pretty sure after some people hear this, when they go back to the archives on in the stew pot, on kevinstew.com, then they go into the video archives and they pull this up, they're probably going to want to get in touch with you. They're going to want to hear you come back. People referring to her as Superwoman Sabrina.
She is. She is.
Yeah, she is.
But actually, no one's a Superman or a Superwoman. That's going to be really impressive, you know.
Right.
But she is totally awesome. That's for sure. Brilliant and awesome. Kevin, it's been really great talking to you. This was such a lovely conversation. Time flew by.
Yes, it did. Of course, there was the first half an hour that was just crazy.
Yeah, well, that helped.
But,
yeah.
but thank you for taking the time out, and I look forward to us chatting again.
Anytime, man.
I look forward to it, and there's so much to learn. There's so much to try to change in the narrative.
Yeah.
And it starts with a simple thing.
Yeah.
You know, the little things.
Yeah. For sure.
David, you have a great night. All
You
the
too.
best with that new course that you start teaching tomorrow.
Yeah.
All the best with you. Are you in the classroom or are you virtual?
Oh, no. Fortunately, because of my age, I got an accommodation. I'm teaching remotely.
Okay.
Yeah, I prefer to be face-to-face with students, but I also prefer not to die.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah. I only just met you. I still need to have a few more years.
yeah. Okay. We'll see if we can secure that.
Yeah, let's try to work that out.
Okay, man.
All right. So you take care. We'll be in touch.
Yeah. Good night to you, and good night to all your audience.
All righty. Have a great one.
You too.
Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. David Livingstone Smith, author extraordinaire, professor of philosophy at the University of New England. What more is there for me to say? Not much. Other than to thank you all for tuning in. Thank you for sharing. Thank you for your comments. Do encourage someone to come back to kevinstew.com and pull this up in the video archive. Because this is how we start to change the narrative. This is how we begin to have acceptance through enlightenment. It is a movement. Tell someone that, remind someone that they are human, no matter what anybody else says. They are human, and they deserve to be treated with respect. They deserve to be honored. First person you need to tell is a person in the mirror. That's where everything needs to start.
Ooh, 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 oh, yeah. Ooh, ooh, ooh.
I'm gonna leave you with new music from Korik. It's called Give I Faith.
Time for link you cause me want this and me need that. But listen to my prayer cause we need you, we mean that. Listen to my prayer now, Jah. Tears them dread out the road, I run red and me don't know if me I gonna make it home. Road boys and police running wild in the streets and it feels like a war zone. Imagine me work so hard and can't let them make backyard, cause robbers want to take my one. But goodness and mercy will guide and protect me, so me know so me not alone. But I need faith to go on. In all this you give the yarning. I need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own I'm just not strong enough. Give me faith to go on. In all this you give the yarning. I need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own I'm just not strong. Ooh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Oh, yeah. Sure. The hearts of men have grown desperately wicked, and them seek the taste of blood. No compassion for humanity. I'm wondering what they're made of. Jaja, something seriously wrong with your people. Them not seem to have no love. And I'm of that point of view that we need to turn to you to give us faith to go on. In a this ya Gideon, I need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own I'm just not strong enough. Give us faith to go on. In a this ya Gideon, I need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own I'm just not strong enough. But if you stand with us and help us to rise up, nothing can harm us, no, no. Cause we know that even in this time, with faith, courage, and a just cause, David will still beat Goliath. So we pray, and we wait. Oh, yeah. But in the meantime, we're calling on you. Hey, give us faith to go on. In our this Gideon, I need your
I want to thank you each and everyone for sticking around throughout this week. And as we pack it up for the remainder of the week, I do want to encourage you to look out for members of your community. And your community is not just the development that you live in, but it spreads far and wide. So those that you pass on the bus, on the plane, on the boat, on the train, whether you walk, ride, or drive, these are members of your community. Do something good for one of them today, because you never know who's going to do something good for you tomorrow. My name is Kevin Stew, so I like to do it to you, for you, and with you every Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday from 10 to midnight. Right here, kevinstew.com. Reminding you to check out other broadcasts throughout the remainder of this week. And remember, Record Store Day this Saturday. VP Records for those of you in South Florida. Ed Robinson, SDS will be performing live. Remember, we're practicing social distancing. So wear your mask. If you don't have your mask, you need to stay away.
Give us faith to go on. In our this Gideon, need your strength to hold on.
I do encourage you all to be good.
My own, I'm just not strong enough. Give us faith to go on.
But if you can't be good, please be good at it.
Need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own, I'm just not strong enough. On my own, I'm just not strong enough.
Good morning, good afternoon, good day to you wherever you are in the world. From right here in South Florida, I say good night.
Cause on my own I'm just not strong enough. Give my faith to go on. In a distant Gideon, need your strength to hold on. Cause on my own I'm just not strong enough.
Greetings and salutations, one and all. You're invited to tune in to the Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew. It airs on Mondays with Community and Finance, Tuesdays with Healthy Love, and Wednesdays with Real Talk from 10 p.m. to midnight Eastern Time. Come spend some time interacting in the stew pot where we keep things bubbling and wind down in musical therapy. The Night Shift with DJ Kevin Stew is on kevinstew.com, where you're encouraged to have acceptance through enlightenment.